Hi everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. On today's episode, the Brazilian rain tree. Welcome in everyone to the plant room on this Sunday, November the 10th of 2024. I've got the Brazilian rain tree that I picked up over on my road trip east of the Mississippi. I got this from Bonsai West and I got it here. It survived. It's starting to close up its leaves now because one of the cool features of the BRT is that the leaves close up at night when it gets darker out, and then when the sun comes out in the morning, it starts to open up. So I did a little bit of preliminary work on this. You can check this out now on the playlist. The first one will be from when I worked on it outside in the solar green frame, the PSGF. And today I'm not going to work on this tree per se. I just wanted to talk about it a little bit and the Brazilian rain tree. So of course the best time to work on this tree would not be in November. But of course I have good conditions in here, so I'm able to work on my trees, my tropical trees, a little bit here and there. This would be best to be worked on in the middle of summer here in Minnesota, so when all of a sudden the warmth and heat comes about and this thing starts to really pushing out growth on the next growing season is when I can do a lot of major work. And that's the key here with a lot of our bonsai trees. Once you learn about a tree that you know can't be done like more than one big thing in a year. Like for instance, when I talked with Chris Baker out at the Chicago Botanical Gardens, he talked about the jack pine, which I want to put a couple of those into bonsai acres. And when you work with the jack pine, he said that's one of those trees where you do like one major thing a year and that's it. So if you're going to repot it, stop right there. If you're going to do a major chop of the trunk or something, you're going to stop right there. Some big activities on a tree is stressing our tree out. We don't want to do a whole lot more. It's pretty similar to the BRT as I have discovered, looking at some research, watching some other videos, and doing a little peek on the old interwide web. And so though that's the best time to work on it for the big repots and the big super styling with possible some big chunks and cuts, I could do some really light trimming most of the year. So you can prune throughout the year as long as you're not doing major stuff. Now, the reason why I want to work on a BRT today is because I got a second one, everybody, and I'm going to show you that next. So what I can do is something like this. If this tree right here is too tall for me, I can go ahead and cut that branch off today. I missed. But there I have a little bit more of my shape back on the tree. So if you want to prune it back to keep the shape a couple of times a year, that's certainly something that I've discovered you are welcome to do. And then when you do those major things and do all that heavy work in the summertime, you can defoliate these. You can of course repot them in some major pruning situations, and it's going to bounce right back. Now when I was at Bonsai West, and I met the folks out there, they had talked about some of the friends there from the YouTube road trip. Talked about how they defoliated when they did their repot that spring, or into summer rather, and everything bounced back really, really well. So you should be able to do some good work in the summer. So I'm going to put this aside, and let me pull out two more things to show you with the BRTs. Now the BRT is pretty new to me, but I'm already trying to propagate because I think it is one of the coolest trees in my collection. I love the smooth bark. When you got that kind of fin-like looking trunk instead of just a round circle, it just kind of spreads out and it has different colors than when you see the older trees, and it's got that smooth look. So it's not a really rough bark tree, which are sought after in so many species. But the BRTs I just think are phenomenal. When I saw them at Bonsai West, I literally fell in love. And I had heard of them before and I'd seen a couple before, but I fell in love with the BRTs on the road trip. And so of course I picked myself up one. I missed that one too. Darn, 0 for 2 with 3-point shooting. So this right here is a cutting from the BRT. Now I had about 5 in here, and 3 of them bit the dust pretty quick, and I'm not sure why. But these guys continue to open up in the late morning, early afternoon, or well, morning actually, and then they start closing right about now. So this one's got a little bit of open leaves, but it's shutting down. So I think I got a little new growth right here, and this one doesn't look quite as good on this side, but these are attached. And there's this one right here. So this one is not looking as good up over on this side. I don't know how it's going to go. We're going to keep it in here all winter long in the coziness of my plant room, and we're going to keep it moist and it won't get any direct sun to damage it. So we'll see if we get some cuttings on here and see if they's root. So hopefully updates later on in the winter or early spring on if we got any roots in here. And in the spring, if we have some roots, we'll put them in separate little pots for them, so not in this big jumble thing here, and we'll get these on their way. Now let's look at the other brand new BRT. Well, at least it's new to me. Hold on. Yeah, look at this one. Okay, so one of our members with the Minnesota Bonsai Society, Terry White, is kind of downsizing his collection pretty majorly at this time in his life. So Terry is getting a little bit older up there in years. He's been a great member of MBS for years and worked on some amazing trees over the time. And he's been looking to get downsizing his trees. And hey, I made that one. I'm 1 for 3. And getting rid of some trees. So when I went over there, he said, Dave, I've got a Portulacaria you might be interested in, because y'all know I like my ports. And then he said, I've got a Brazilian rain tree. I know you have that one. Would you like another one? I said, hey, I'll come over and look at it. So I went over to Terry's place, and this is what I saw. And it's got some great potential, and it's got a really fun, windy trunk already. It's got this major one right out here. Now there is a thick growth over here that kind of cross each other, so we got some no-nos of bonsai there, and we'll take care of all that in time. And it's not in a bonsai pot. It's been in this soil. I don't even know how long. I forgot already how long. But we've got a really nice, interesting shaped tree that could be some real fun down the road. Now, I mentioned before that we don't want to do anything major. So I'm not going to repot this today. And I'm not going to do a big old trunk chop today. I'm just going to bring this back to scale. Now, there are a few branches on here that look like they've dried up and they probably are not viable at the moment. So I could even cut into those and see if those are alive. And like that one right there, we do not need. So I'll cut that one pretty close to the edge. Now here's another thing with the BRT. Don't use a concave cutter for the live branches really close to the trunk. What they recommend is using your shears, and you're going to leave some dieback like I let on that branch right there. I left that about 1/4 inch. I'm going to get rid of this one too, right there. And I left about 1/4 inch. That's going to dry up now, those two, and we can prune back those and clean it up at a later time. So that is really in a good situation. Now, this one right here, now I talk about no major work. This one right here, this looks like it has gotten chewed by a critter and it's no longer even alive. I'm going to go ahead and test it out right here. Yeah, that's totally dead branch. So I'm not hurting the tree by cutting this dead branch a little bit lower, and we know now that we'll be able to get that off next year. That's all dead. No living tissue with what I just cut off right there. So there's that guy right there. So we're going to clean this thing up next spring when we know this thing's ready to put out all the energy and grow, to not get too far in this cut and stress it out, okay? So those kind of cuts we can make too. So when we're talking about things we can do in the plant room or in our cold frames and work on them throughout the year, we don't do a lot of work. But if there's some branches that are in that crazy a shape, either dead or so long that we can't fit this in our cold frames, can't fit this, in my case, in a plant room with the tropical tree here, we're going to go ahead and do something about that. So we're going to go ahead and trim a couple things back here that either are dead and dying, so they're just all dead branches that I'm clipping away just to clean it up a little bit for next year, because I'm not cutting any life of this right now. This is all dead stuff. But remember I mentioned earlier with the other trees, we can cut this down to size. Now, I don't know exactly what's going to be the front of this tree yet, so I have to look at that carefully too if I'm going to make cuts right today to bring this back down and kind of have its canopy. And this thing is so long that it's taking up a lot of space here in the plant room, so let's go ahead and just give it a little bit of cuts. Now that might be the first front right there. That could be the proposed front. I could probably lean it up a little bit more this way. But you could also have this back as the front with the tree over this way. So one of those two is going to be the front. This probably won't be the front. Or this, because of the branches that are hiding and the real skinniness of the tree. This shows off the tree a lot more. And again, this is the first time that I'm looking at cutting anything on this tree. I just got this late in the summer. And brought it pretty much straight inside to my plant room. It wasn't outside at all. I think I brought it right down here. So it was late summer, early fall. Actually, it was early to mid-fall, I think, when I got a hold of this guy. And it's been putting on growth, so it is growing, which is kind of nice. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to cut down a couple of branches to size. So let's see here. This one's just getting super big. This one's super big. Now remember, the BRTs have thorns, so make sure you are prepared with gloves if you'd like to, or be very careful when you grab these trees. Now, one of the nice things I've discovered about these trees is they grow not in a straight line often. So all this new growth, it's hard to see with all this growth in front of you right now. But there's a lot of zigzaggy patterns to the branches. Like this guy right here. It goes up this way, then back down this way, then up this way, and back down this way right here. So that one right there has a little bit of that zigzag pattern. I don't know if you can see that through my hand at all, but really kind of interesting. So it has movement already, so you don't even have to worry about, wiring per se at the moment because it grows so nice. Okay, so we've got some long branches on here. Let's do a couple clippity clips. Big one up here.
Now this branch right here is growing all the way from inside over there. I'm just going to cut that whole one off. Again, hoping that that's not too aggressive here in my plant room.
All right, now we didn't take a ton off, but we did cut all the tips all around those edges, got rid of some of those real long leggy things, a couple that were crossing in a really weird situation. And before I stop today, I will do that. I will reach in and see if there's any more just bizarre branches growing from way inside or way out. Like this right here is crisscrossing from way back here and grows down on this branch right here. So that makes this tree super tall, and it's not going to grow back here and crisscross in the future design of the tree. So this has not been worked on for quite a while. It's just been sitting in the greenhouse, my friend Terry, and we're just going to get this thing moving in a good direction. There are a couple of really snarly, tangly branches inside this structure here that we will get rid of at some time. But again, I'm not going to do it today. Today are just the tips, and we're just bringing this thing back down to size a little bit so it fits better in my plant room. See that right there? There we go. I got right there. And in my plant room with the warmth eventually that I add in January, this thing could wake up pretty early too. Yeah, there is just some snarls in here that are pretty intensive, but I want to be careful. I don't want to go too, as much as I'd like to work on this tree, I don't want to go too crazy for not knowing exactly where the front of this is going to be. And so right now that's a little bit more manageable. I mean, we only took off 6 to 8 inches, but that's going to make this a little bit more manageable in my plant room as I see how many plants are still yet to come in. I have a few more that are coming in from the greenhouse right now, and they'll be coming in the coming weeks. We still have temperatures that are going to be hitting 40s and some 50s, and lows not much below mid-30s. So the greenhouse is holding true a lot of good temps, so I'm not worried about that at all. This guy right here is just in a weird spot. So I'll finish with this branch right here. I don't know if you can see this, you all, but let me show you right here. This branch right here starts right here. Right, my finger comes into the tree, and it wraps around this branch right up here. It wraps around and comes back out to the front to poke you in the eye there. So that one is such a bizarre, twisty. We're just going to take that off, and now I can show you just how twisty that one was. So look at this, everybody. That was wrapping around a branch right there. Complete boomerang, right? Went out and it was coming all the way back. Pretty crazy growth. So we have a lot of stuff to clean in there down the pipe here as we get into the new season. But right now it's going to fit in my plant room a little bit better. So there we go, another BRT. So remember, when you're in your plant room, when you're working on trees, we often talk about in workshops and we talk about on videos, at least I do, that we don't want to love our trees to death. So I don't want to go too crazy with a tree like this time of year, but it's going to fit in here a lot better. And now I have a really exciting update for you, so hold on one sec. I mentioned at the top of the show that it was Sunday, November the 10th. Now the reason why I mentioned the date on this show is because this is my Thanksgiving cactus, y'all. So the Thanksgiving cactus is supposed to bloom on Thanksgiving, but lo and behold, a couple of weeks ago, I'm out in the passive solar green frame, so still a lot of heat, a lot of warmth, I'm keeping it watered, all the things I'm supposed to do to not make it bud out early. but it still decided to bud out early. So this is a tree, for those of you that might be new to the channel, this is a tree that on my YouTube channel, Dave's Bonsai, what you're watching right now, the most popular video to date, the top two videos are about this Thanksgiving cactus. Not even really a traditional bonsai tree in the least. But as many of you know, I like to experiment. I like to have all kinds of different plants, and it's just a great show of how if you take a tree, take a house plant, and you bonsify it, you can make this thing like a tree. So my goal with this tree is to get a little bit more hard woody substance, another couple of inches up off the ground as it keeps getting bigger. And then when these bloom, they're so heavy that they start to like droop down, and it looks like a great big weeping willow, but it's a weeping Thanksgiving cactus instead. So as you can see as I spin this around, and let me get it even a little bit closer to you there. We can zoom in maybe in post. Look at the buds on this amazing plant. There are so many. There's 1 to 2 buds on every tip of every branch, except for this one doesn't have one, but it looks like it's trying to grow one. This one is really tiny, but this one has 2, that one has 2, this one has 2 back here. So here's an example of a double right there. Right there, you can see the double maybe in front of my hand. So I did have a damaged branch on here, and part of it I think was up here, but it's a little, you can see how droopy it's getting. But there, everybody, is the Thanksgiving cactus. So it's a little late to be telling you this, but as a reminder, we do the opposite of what I did. It's supposed to make your blooms go. When you bring it in and you keep it in a darker, cooler area, which that's probably what bloomed mine, is the cooler weather outside when we finally got it. But cooler weather, so down in my basement in colder basement type weather, less light and less water. And then that stress on the tree and that change, it triggers these blooms to go. So it's only the 10th of November, and Thanksgiving this year is really super late. It's the last week of the month, lead into the last weekend of the month. And so that's 3 weeks away. I think it's 3 weeks from Thursday is Thanksgiving. Is that right? And so this will be in full bloom. Some of these are going to open this week, I think. So I'll show it to you when it's in full bloom in a couple of episodes, but I wanted to show you it now before it did, to show you what it kind of looks like. So there's the Thanksgiving cactus. Your Christmas cactus, your Easter cactus, similar. You get it into a cooler place, less light, less water, and then it's going to start to bloom. So if you do that a couple of weeks before Thanksgiving, then it will, or the holiday of the cactus, and then it'll bloom. So if this wouldn't have bloomed until now, if I just would have started the process now, I might have been in good shape by Thanksgiving. Oh well, it's going to be pretty nonetheless. We'll put it up on the table just for a random dinner, and we'll have a good time. So there's the update on the ever-popular Thanksgiving cactus that really isn't a bonsai tree, but what the heck. I think it's just fine as a fun specimen of a tree. There you go. Hey, that's going to wrap up this short little episode here. My first one of the tail end of this 6th season of Dave's Bonsai in the plant room with my grandfather over my right shoulder. For those of you that don't know, my artistic grandfather, he was a photographer and kind of an artist in his own right. And we have some creativity in the family. My brother's incredibly talented. My brother drew that picture right there with charcoal pencil. So there is some talent, and I'm trying to express my talent through bonsai. And so this is my art piece, and I hope you enjoy it and everything else you see. And as always, I so appreciate you watching and making this so much fun for me. So until the next video or the update on this, because it's going to be pretty quick, hey, take care of you, take care of your bonsai, and you know we're going to catch you very, very soon.